What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react to some new data that's come out very recently showing just how bad the Canadian tourism decline has become here in the United States. And, frankly, this is also talking about how much money the United States has lost in the last year as a result of all this. And, before we even get into all these cold, hard numbers here, I can't help but point out how incredibly frustrating this whole thing is, as an American, because you have to face facts. We essentially caused all of this onto ourselves. Things were going pretty good for us, actually, and now, in only the course of a single year, man, how much has changed, and not in a good way for the United States. Like, yeah, I hate to say it, but this is like the first time in my life where I am seriously hearing people talk about, credibly talk about the decline of the United States, which is obviously incredibly saddening for a lot of us Americans. Like I was saying, it's frustrating because we caused this to ourselves by threatening Canada, by tariffing Canada, and yet somehow this was all supposed to be some kind of master plan, some kind of brilliant plan to be great for the United States. At least that's if you think back to like when Donald Trump first announced his plans for the tariffs on Canada and started this whole thing, and oh man, yeah, it's enough to make your mind explode. Maybe that'd be a good thing. Take me out of my misery. Blow up my mind. Anyway, without getting a little too macabre here, let's I want to take a look at this and see and understand what exactly the damage is in the last year to the U.S. from the sort of the Canadian tourism boycotting or decline. So let's take a look.
1 year into a boycott of U.S. destinations, Canadian travelers have cost the American economy $4.5 billion dollars.
4.5 billion. My lips can't even get any billion with a B. Can't even get any bigger. What can you even say? Like, think about like that. That's enough money to pay for like the wages of like 70,000, 80,000 Americans for like a year. Like, think about it like that. Think about this like a small US city vanished. That's the impact like that this would have. Like a US tech company vanishing. So I guess if you're a Canadian and like you don't want your money spent here and or you actively want to boycott the United States, this is probably kind of good news for you because it's working. It's very bad for the U.S. Yeah, to say the least.
And show no inclination of returning in 2026 as trips to the U.S. took another tumble in January.
And yeah, we haven't even talked about how it's showing no signs of stopping or slowing or like you can't help but think maybe this is just the new normal or at least for the next 3 years. Like there's some part of me that holds out hope like when Donald Trump inevitably his term runs out. I suppose it would depend on who we elect next, but Maybe some of this can be salvaged, perhaps reversed. I don't know. I'm desperate here.
The number of Canadians taking road trips into the US, the most common way of visiting, dropped by 27% last month compared to January of 2025.
That is unbelievable. I mean, Canadians, like, 27% decline. That does not just happen if people are like, kind of upset. Canadians are passionately, vehemently, how's that for a word? Vehemently upset and against traveling to the US. Now, obviously, the United States and Canada is incredibly intertwined, you know, like geographically, economically, all sorts of stuff. So you can't just, like, that's why the decline probably isn't bigger, because a lot of Canadian travel is necessary, like maybe for your job or whatever. Um, so given our relationship, 27% is unbelievable. Like,
According to data released Wednesday from Statistics Canada. There was also an 18% year over year decline in air travelers from Canada in January.
wow.
January was the 12th consecutive month of steep declines in inbound Canadian travel, with
So I've been trying to keep up with this, like, as the months have gone on, and somehow here we are, a year later since this kind of started. Literally every month, literally month after month after month, without any stop, the decline has grown.
double-digit year-over-year drops in both car and air travel to the US every month since April. The volume of Americans visiting Canada was essentially flat in January, with 0.5% fewer Americans heading north compared to a year ago.
So that's like negligible. Like, Americans are traveling to Canada in the same at the same frequency. It seems like unchanged. And I do believe that most Americans still have like a pretty positive opinion of Canadians. Well, maybe not after all this Canadian curling controversy touching the granite stone. God. It's funny how big a deal that's become, if you've heard about that thing. Anyway, most Americans, joking aside, like, still have a very positive opinion of Canadians, and you can literally see it in the statistics that we are still traveling to Canada at the same frequency. Um, Canadian, I think this should be like on the mainstream national news in the United States. This is like some Forbes. This is some Forbes YouTube video or something, like, which is great. But I think every American in the country needs to see this and understand, like, exactly what's happening and exactly what the consequences are of our actions. Because the Americans who are directly affected by this know and understand, and I think that's mostly Americans in, like, the border areas near Canada who rely on Canadian tourism in that way, being close to Canada, and like even like Las Vegas and stuff in Florida, like where Canadians travel for vacations or leisure and stuff. They're feeling it, I know, but a lot of Americans who aren't necessarily directly affected by Canadian tourism, like where I am in the middle of nowhere, like uh, it's not making an impact like in my community directly, that Canadians are I mean, given enough time, it will. Like, and it probably is in ways that I just can't tell. Like, um, things that take more of a big, broader scope and affect the country, like nationally, like with the tariffs and the boycotting. And anyway, yeah, you understand what I'm trying to say is like a lot of Americans need to be much more aware of this because the ones who are the ones who are really suffering because of it. And then there's like this weird dichotomy of a bunch of Americans that aren't suffering enough to be aware of this enough, if that makes sense.
In 2025, 4 million fewer Canadian travelers visited the US than the previous year, a 22% drop, according to the US Commerce Department's National Travel and Tourism Office.
Wow.
The US Travel Association warned a year ago that even a 10% reduction in Canadian inbound travel could translate to $2.1 billion in lost spending and
Wow.
140,000 jobs jeopardized in the hospitality and related sectors.
The jobs, like, because in the broader sense of the entire American economy, 4.5 billion might not sound like a huge number, but it's really because it's so concentrated, like specifically on the travel and tourism industry. Then it's concentrated on these like 100,000 Americans who depend on it, losing their jobs at risk, and 100,000 Americans with their jobs at risk is very significant, like to the whole country.
The actual decline was more than double that hypothetical drop. Given that Canadian tourists spent $20.5 billion in the US in 2024, a 22% decline in visitation in 2025
Hmm.
translates to an economic hit of roughly $4.5 billion.
Wow.
In the years leading to 2025, Canadian tourists were the biggest single source of international visitors to the US,
Oh,
making up
wow.
roughly one quarter of all foreign travelers who come to the country, according to the NTTO.
I think a lot of Americans don't realize that. That it makes sense though. Canadians are the biggest group of people that travel here internationally. Like the biggest part of our tourism, a group of people who come here.
The relationship between Canada and the US has been strained by President Donald Trump's hefty tariffs on the country's goods and repeated threats to make Canada the 51st state.
Yeah.
The US House voted Wednesday to block tariffs Trump levied against Canada last year, with 6 Republicans joining Democrats despite the president making threats against GOP lawmakers who went against him.
Yes. I don't know if a lot of you have heard about that. That's big news. Here in the United States, that the House of Representatives actually voted on whether tariffs are the means by which Trump implemented these tariffs, the legal means in which he did it might not be legal, might not actually be a thing. And like our government actually voted to remove the Canadian tariffs. It's just that that's only one series of votes. It has to go through like the Senate or something, and then Donald Trump, it could land on his desk and he can just veto it, which you would think he would. So it's more of a symbolic gesture showing, yeah, even a lot of Republican like politicians crossed over and voted against the tariffs, which made Trump was literally, you can look at his social media posts, you can look at his posts, and he is literally threatening and trying to intimidate Republican politicians into not voting against the tariff legalization, which is pretty unbelievable. And thank God that intimidation didn't seem to work. And yeah, so the first step of like removing these Trump tariffs on Canada actually passed. It's a big win and a big symbolic win, and that may be what it ends up being, but it is something. Um, okay, and real quick, I think I have a few more stats here I wanted to take a look at. Yeah, about 2025 to 2026 Canadian tourism statistics in the U.S. So in 2024, 20 million visitors dropped to 16.8 in 2025, and now in 2026, it's projected to drop again. Not as much. We're literally running out of Canadians to protest against us. Eventually, they will all be exhausted and just all staying away, but still, millions more Canadians expected to not travel to the US this year. 18% decline. Economic drain, 4.2. Forbes said 4.5 billion lost in retail, shopping, hotels, food, entertainment. The workforce impact, 52,000 jobs at risk. The travel sector is one of the nation's largest employers. I think a lot of Americans don't realize that. how important this stuff. It's easy for a lot of people to be like, "Oh, it's just tourism, it's travel, it's leisure. What's it matter?" Like it matters. It matters. The decline in Canadian volume has led to reduced hours for hospitality workers, hiring freezes, layoffs, Americans literally losing their livelihood, losing their jobs, suffering, families suffering. And I'm not trying to make Canadians feel guilty. That didn't even cross my mind. Like, because in my mind, this is all a consequence and a direct. It was caused because of us. We've done it to ourselves. Like, you can't just threaten Canadians and expect you guys to just lie down and not do anything. No, you're not gonna want to come here. It makes complete sense. So any pain and suffering Americans are feeling, I attribute to Donald Trump and his policies, really. Beyond revenue, reputation, and scale. So it says business closures, over 1,200 small businesses in northern border zones report critical revenue shortages. This makes a lot of sense to me, and from what I understand, it is those northern American businesses that depend on a lot of Canadian travel that are getting disproportionately like affected by this. Global reputation. Oh, jeez. The global reputation. The damage, on that note, the damage that has been done to the American reputation, to the US's reputation, is unheard of, untold amounts of damage, and what the repercussions of all of this will be for years to come. Like, it's one thing, it's bad, don't get me wrong, it's really bad, but it's one thing to lose money or this or that, but that hurts everybody. But our reputation, hurting our reputation as a country, will, that's not something you can just like, you can't even measure it. And how the heck do you get that back? It takes so much time to build trust, and so quick to lose it. So easy to lose it. The perception of the United States as high cost is deterring middle class Canadians. Is that a thing? I thought, like, for the first and foremost, Canadians aren't traveling here because we have offended you, we have hurt you, we have broken our trust. The idea that we're high cost, perhaps that deters people as well, but wouldn't that always have been true? Route cuts, major carriers reducing transborder flight frequency by 12%. So they're cutting like airplane routes to the US because there's not enough people even using them anymore. Summary: without intervention in currency exchange adjustments or targeted marketing, the US economy, at this point, they project that it stands to lose over 10 billion in revenue by the end of 2026. So, yeah, with what they can tell now based on the trends and the data, this is not stopping. Maybe it's slowing, like if I'm trying to be optimistic, but what it's not the kind of thing where even if it slows, suddenly we're not going to be hurt anymore. No, we're talking about millions of people not traveling here. And that going on, like that keeps going. Just because that number stops growing by such an alarming rate, you still have that huge damage month over month over month. That huge deficit remains. And it is still growing, but geez Louise, I don't. It's bad. It's just bad for the US, and I do feel like this isn't being discussed enough. Certainly not something Donald Trump seems to be worried about. If you looked at Donald Trump's posts and his press like releases, the stuff he says, you would think we're doing great. You would think we're doing better than ever. It's actually insane. But But I suppose that is the times we're living in. Yeah, this isn't fun to hear about, but as I like to say, as an American, I think it's our duty to understand what's happening. And you can't live with your head under a rock or something. You've got to face facts and understand what's going on. And only then will you have any chance of changing it or not continuing to make the same mistakes. So, with that being said, if you enjoyed this, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment with your thoughts on the impact of the Canadian tourism decline to the US, especially if you're Canadian, especially if you like have any thoughts about this or if you're not traveling here and the impact that it's having and your thought. That'd be really cool to hear about. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to Canadian things that I've never seen before, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching and see you next time.